Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247, joined as always by my esteemed colleague, the one and only Eric Henry, a proud Tampa Catholic graduate, world traveler. He just got back from Dayton, Ohio, where the Texas Longhorns basketball team, after dominating in the first half against Xavier in a first four game at University of Dayton Arena, just 50 miles from Xavier's campus in Cincinnati. And Texas dominates in the first half. Eric has a 13-point lead 3 different times. But then in the second half, all the energy and excellence that we saw from Texas in the first half seemed to shift over to Xavier. They were the desperate team. They're the ones getting great performances from their, secondary and third scorers. And then Texas made some boneheaded fouls and missed free throws. Trey Johnson misses a free throw with a minute left in a 1-point game at the time. Eric, your thoughts. You were there. You were in the building. Take us there. Tell us what you saw.
Chip Brown, faithful Horns247 viewer at the Flagship. Appreciate y'all rocking with us here on this Thursday afternoon. My days are all mixed up because I've been all over the place. I don't even know what day it is, but it's Thursday. 4 o'clock. I learned that Dayton is in the Eastern time zone. That's for one. I got that a little mixed up there. It's always kind of weird how, you go seemingly in a straight line, you end up in the Eastern time zone. Nevertheless, great to be back here in Central Texas. Before I get started, Chip, special shout out to one of our loyal viewers and listeners, Chris Bennett. I know he was under the weather a little bit, dealing with a little deal there. CB, glad to see you are up and rocking with us. I saw you in the chat. So just want to give you a quick shout out there before I get going. Listen, Chip, what did I see? What did I see? What did I hear? Let's start with the see. For those who did not make the trip, and there were a few, Chip, there were a scattering of Texas fans of burnt orange inside the UD arena, but it was mostly Xavier fans. The media hotel's directly across the street. It's a courtyard directly across the street from UD Arena. You just walk over. Didn't even take the media shuttle. Chip, the line of cars as I walked over halfway through the American Mount St. Mary's game was all the way back to the highway. And just out of curiosity, I just used my eyes, just looked, and I saw nothing but Xavier vanity plates and Xavier fans coming in. And that pretty much told me what I needed to know, that this was not going to be, Chip, a neutral site first 4 game. This was going to be a road game. That was step 1. Step 2 was getting inside of the UD arena and hearing every single time, even before tip-off, a Texas fan was shown on the Jumbotron, massive boos. That's what I said to, the other folks who made the trip from Austin. I think the Horns are going to be in for something. I hope, because Rodney Terry joked, Chip, the day before. He said he hopes that some of those fans who go and watch the first 4 game, the early game, they'll stick around and maybe they'll cheer against Xavier. That was not the case, Chip. And I was going to lay one more piece of foundation before I get to the game. Dayton and Xavier have a massive rivalry. They do not like each other at all. However, Dayton's playing in the NIT, and they just beat Florida Atlantic. Ironically enough, they would have been at home. They were a 1 seed, Chip. So if it weren't for the first 4, they would have been at home for that game. All the Dayton fans were at home watching their beloved Flyers, which meant there was nothing to cancel out the noise, Chip. And you heard it on the broadcast. There was nothing to cancel out the noise. That was, Chip, by far in the 2 years I've covered Texas basketball, I've gone to the new Baylor facility. I'm forgetting the name of it right now. I've gone to Foster Pavilion. I've gone to Fertitta Center down in Houston. Nothing rivaled last night at the UD Arena. To get to the game, Chip, Texas got off to a great start. They shot 58% from the field in the first half. What stood out to me is this is a team that struggled throughout the year to start games quickly, to match teams' intensity, match teams' physicality, and to come out looking like they are ready to go. Texas did that, Chip. Xavier likes to play fast. Sean Miller likes to play fast. Texas was not intimidated by Xavier wanting to push the ball up the court. Ryan Conwell got a couple shots, didn't break him. Texas responded. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this provides validity to Rodney Terry's statement, in addition to the way they performed in the SEC tournament, provides validity to what RT was saying, is that, hey, if our guys are healthy, we think we can compete with anybody, because they certainly looked like they could compete with anybody in the first half. However, as you noted, 13-point lead. Texas led by as many as 13 in the first half, took, I believe, an 8-point lead. I think it was 47-39 at the half. And Xavier quickly came out, punched him, cut that thing to 4. Texas managed to fend it off a couple times, but a multitude of things. One, Texas's hot shooting eventually cooled. That's step 1. 2, in a game like this, you got to knock down your free throws. Have to knock down your free throws, right? Texas went, 18 of 24? I'll pull up the box score really quick. I believe it was 18 of 24 from the line.
24.
18, 24, 75%. So it wasn't bad, but Trey Johnson, who shoots 89% on the year, uncharacteristically, Chip, 7 of 11. What's that? 70-something percent? He doesn't hit.
7 of 11, 60. Quick math tells me.
Yeah, I mean, you may have it. I can go to the box.
3.6%.
So there you go. You're leaving points on the board. That hurts, right? In a game like this, the margins are so small, so crucial. Here's the other factor, right? And I'll pass it back to you on this, Chip, because I know I've talked for a while. Trey Johnson showed up. Tremont Mark showed up. Arthur Kaluma, gave you a little something. Caden Shedrick gave you a little something. But you needed more from those secondary guys. Not just putting it all on Jordan Pope, but he's one guy. Jordan Pope appeared, Chip, to your point, you wrote this not in the Insider, you wrote this last week, saying that, Tremont Mark's ability to be more of the primary ball handler, open up things. Jordan Pope, statistically, Chip, was the biggest beneficiary of that. He, as a guy who, with Tremont's ability to penetrate the lane, Pope looked over the past week and a half so much more comfortable in his spot in the corner, hitting shots, right? Whether it's a mid-range, whether it's coming off of the dribble and getting to the hole. 1 of 4 3-points. You compare that to Xavier in their third scorer, Marcus Foster, who entered this game averaging 7.6 points per game, 22 points, Chip?
8 of 9.
8 of 9 shooting? Those are the things that cost you games. Because guess what, Chip? They did a good job on Ryan Conwell, got him into foul trouble. Zach Fremantle got him into foul trouble, but they found a third scorer that Texas was not able to find. And the end result is the Longhorn season being over, Chip. I'll pass it back to you on that before, I can provide some of the scenes and sounds, sights and sounds of the post game and locker room in the aftermath.
Well, one thing that really surprised me, Eric, was Devon Pryor did not play at all in this game. And was there something wrong with him? Because he's a good defender. He's got length. I would have brought him in for a couple minutes just to see if
to answer your question, DP's healthy. DP's healthy. We've talked with DP after the game, and he said he was fine. So I do agree with you there that maybe that could be one thing. If I were, and I didn't get a chance to ask RT this, because just going to bring the fans, at home into kind of how this works, it's open locker room, right? So you kind of go to the open locker room first, then you go back and get Rodney Terry. So, my question to him was in relation to his job status. However, I would venture to guess, Chip, I don't know how this appeared to you. I'm asking you on the broadcast. Jordan Pope, first NCAA game, he was a guy who talked about it a ton in the lead up. Man, I just wanted a shot to play in the NCAA tournament. I'm not going to say nerves got the best of him, but he definitely, when I spoke with him, he said, yeah, it was an environment like nothing I'd ever experienced. And did it come across on the TV? I don't know if the announcers mentioned anything that Rodney Terry, both times he pulled Jordan Pope, kind of stopped him as he was going back to the bench to kind of talk to him, because Jordan looked like, the guys, they run back and they're kind of do the, the half, not half-hearted, but kind of the quick dap up with, the coach as they're going back to the bench. RT stopped him both times and had an extended conversation with him before letting him go back to the bench. That to me felt like trying to settle a young guy down who's never been in that environment. I don't know if you noted that or if the broadcast mentioned anything at all.
Well, I noted that he just looked like he was in a rush again.
Sure.
And that, for a guy who is a starter, who is he's basically your other shooting guard other than Trey Johnson, to get 3 points and 3 fouls. He had as many turnovers as he had assists. You just did not get enough from him. And obviously Kendall Weaver was really good in the first half, like really good. I think I noted that he and Jason Kent and Zarek Onyema were like a combined 7 of 8 shooting. Weaver, grabbed how many boards did he grab in the second half? Because Weaver grabbed 1 rebound in the second half. In the first half, he was 3 of 3 shooting, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 on the offensive glass, 2 assists, 1. He had 3 steals in the first half, Kendall Weaver. And then you look at the second half and Weaver dropped off. Onyema dropped off. Jason Kent was 1 of 1, hit both his free throws, played solid last night, but Jordan Pope gave you nothing in the second half. Nothing. This was his line in the second half. 0 points, 0 of 1 shooting, 0 of 1 from 3. Now he only played 3 minutes, but that can't happen. Not when every starter for Xavier is coming through. And as you mentioned, Foster, good heavens, 22 points, 8 of 9 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3. And unfortunately for Texas, Eric, Tremont Mark started missing late. I think he only hit 1 of his last 6 shots, and he was really good in the first half. In the first half, Tremont Mark was 5 of 7. In the second half, he was 2 of 7. So the shots stopped falling. There were some bad fouls that were momentum extenders for Xavier. And then, the poor shooting the poor shooting exacerbated the missed free throws down the stretch, because Texas had no field goals, none, in the final 2 minutes and 53 seconds of the game. The only scoring they had was free throws, and it was, Kendall Weaver misses a free throw, Trey Johnson misses a free throw, and at the time, it was a 1-point game when Johnson missed his free throws. Kendall Weaver missed with a chance to make it a 1-possession game, and then no box out from Jason Kent. So Fremantle gets in there. Just the little details, Eric, started slipping. And I thought Caden Shedrick was really good. Thought he was really alert, heads up, hit his free throws. You had a chance. You had a chance to win that game. And, Sean Miller said after the game, I thought we were dead in the water 3 different times. But, it says a lot about the resiliency of this team. We just find a way, and they did that. And so and I guess now we move into the what's next phase, unless you have any other thoughts on the.
Well, how about this? Because I typically I'd let you transition, but how about I transition into the Rodney Terry what's next? Because obviously you have some reporting, and I'm going to use this as kind of a segue into it. So I asked Rodney Terry about several of the reports, yours and others, that came out in the immediate aftermath of the games, and that Texas will likely move on from Rodney Terry. I would love your thoughts on this as you kind of segue into your reporting, Chip, because you've been around here a long time. I don't have the quick fact check on this, right? And sometimes Rodney can just talk, and I don't mean that as a pejorative. He can just talk, right? So I asked RT, hey, there are reports that your job is going to be, is it's not going to continue past this year. If that is the case, how do you feel about your time as head coach of Texas? Rodney Terry, this is direct transcript from the NCAA. I've been at Texas 13 years, and there's not a year I haven't made the NCAA tournament. I believe that to be true. That's off the top of my head. There's not a year I haven't made the NCAA tournament or been a part of the NCAA tournament. I have a lot of pride in terms of being a Longhorn. I love being at Texas. Here's the line, Chip, that I think is going to make your ears perk up. I don't think anyone has been a part of Texas basketball that's been more successful than myself. I've been a part of the top 5 seasons in this program's history. And then he goes on to say, hey, I give our guys a lot of credit. And as RT has been very emphatic, strong in his beliefs, saying that if God's planned for him to be here at Texas, he'll be here. If it's not, he's perfectly fine with that because he's a man of faith. But Chip, I'd love your thoughts on kind of the latter part of the first half of the statement there.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably right when he says he was a part of, because the Elite Eight trip that he had 2 years ago, Rick Barnes obviously was not a part of. Otherwise, all the other success that Rodney Terry had from 2002 to 11 was as an assistant to Rick Barnes, the TJ Ford led Final Four in 2003. Kevin Durant winning Naismith Player of the Year as a freshman in 2007, the Elite Eight trip in 2008. Rodney Terry was a part of all that. The Elite Eight trip in 2006, when Texas lost to LSU in overtime for a chance to go to the Final Four. A game that LaMarcus Aldridge would love to have back, 2 of 14 in that game against Tyrus Thomas. But, Rodney Terry was not the guy calling the shots.
Right.
And Rodney has done a good job. He's done a good job. The standard that Chris Del Conte has said repeatedly in town hall meetings, in interviews, is we hire coaches who have a chance to win a national championship in their respective sports. And I think the concern was that you go 29-9, you go to the Elite Eight, you were up 13 with 10 minutes left to go to the Final Four. I mean, Rodney Terry could have been a Final Four coach. And they lost that game. That lead slipped away. Miami beat them. And then you look at last year, goes to the round of 32, loses to Rick Barnes. And then this year, you put a portal intensive roster together that has talent, but you had so many non-competitive games. I mean, you got blown out at A&M, you got blown out at Florida, you got blown out at South Carolina, you got blown out at home by Bama, you got blown out at home by Georgia. You were down 20 plus to Arkansas at home before making that a tighter game. Probably should have won the game at Arkansas. 3 times Texas had double-digit leads this year and lost against Ole Miss. They were up 13 in the first half. At Vanderbilt, they were up 10 with 14 minutes left in the game. And then last night, the move to put Tremont Mark at point guard happens after the regular season. It had a huge contributing factor to the wins over Vanderbilt and A&M in the SEC tournament. And those wins got Texas into the first 4. So again, the question comes up, okay, why? I know Tremont Mark was injured at times, but that move wasn't made in game 3 or 4 or 5. Tramon Marks, he missed 6 games, I think, with 3 different injuries. And I don't know to what degree he was healthy, but he was out there. Nonetheless, it doesn't add up to a coach who could win a national championship in the minds of the, powers that be, let's say, at Texas. So I think the people who would say, hey, Rodney Terry, he's never missed the NCAA tournament. That's not the standard. The standard is not to make the NCAA tournament. It's to threaten to win it all in a league with coaches like Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl and John Calipari and, Rick Barnes, for crying out loud. So, it's the timing on this stuff is never good. And I think there will be a little bit of a pause here. Chris Del Conte's wife had surgery. He was not in Dayton. And, so I think there'll be a little pause here, but I think the word will come down, and some of this is going to be coordinated with, if the leading candidate is still coaching, Texas will try to be respectful of that. But Eric, the transfer portal window opens for basketball next week.
Correct.
So there needs to be some movement so that, Texas is losing 7 of its top 10 players, 76% of its point production is walking out the door after this season, and they have 1 recruit signed. The 2025 recruiting class is ranked number 74, which, what does that tell you?
Chip, I'll say this. This is kind of my 2 cents here, because I know we're going to transition to, possible candidates, right? So I'll just say this. I think this will be a natural segue here, Chip. I don't mean for this to come off like good cop, bad cop. And I think it may come off that way. Maybe, if you're not watching us live on the Horns247 YouTube page, which of course, like and subscribe, as Chip Brown would say. I'll play the part of Chip Brown today. Yes. Okay. So Chris Del Conte has stated in town halls and has been on the record. Standard is, can you win a national championship at Texas? I took a little bit of heat for writing this in a couple of my 4 downs columns, but I've simply said, when the hell is winning a national championship ever been the standard at Texas for men's basketball, right? It's been making an NCAA tournament. It's been every few years, kind of putting together a team that can make a Sweet 16 run, maybe make an Elite 8 run. I'm not saying, because I think this gets misconstrued, I'm not saying that because it hasn't been the case that you should just settle and say, oh, well, we can just make an NCAA tournament be fine. No. You can absolutely strive for all these things, right? My UCF degree was over, that shoulder there. You're not UCF, right? In this case, I'll throw my alma mater under the bus to where just making the NCAA tournament, that's a goal for them. No, this is Texas. You have plenty of resources. You have Moody Center, which I'm getting ready to publish a feature. Every big-time head coach that came to Moody Center this year, men and women, were in awe of Moody Center, all right? You have all of that. You can strive to win national titles, but it has to be more than lip service. And I'm not accusing CDC of just paying lip service, but I think there has to truly be a wholesale commitment to do so in men's basketball. It includes NIL. Both Chip and I have reported some of the NIL, where Texas stands as far as NIL in the Southeastern Conference. Could some of that change with a new head coach? Maybe, right? Maybe some of those folks come up off some of those dollars if there's a new head coach, possibly, right? But I think all those things in conjunction have to come together, Chip, in order for the standard to be what you just said. Now, I'll simply say this, right? To some folks who say, oh, NIL dollars don't matter, so on and so forth. Chip, if Texas football, if it were ever revealed that Texas football were middle of the pack in the SEC and NIL spending, I think there'd be pitchforks running around Austin, because that is far below the standard, right? So that is my case, Chip, in terms of whoever the next coach may be. And we obviously know one of the obvious names that you've talked about. There was one time in the past a Rodney Terry matchup with this man that would have decided who would have been Texas' next coach. And now seemingly in this weird poetic way, it's been the case again, and that is Sean Miller, Chip.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy. And before we get to Sean Miller, I think Chris Del Conte would tell you that he made the move to upgrade Texas basketball when he brought in Chris Beard, who had been to a national championship game, probably should have won that game if his player doesn't leave the three-point shooter in a game where Tech was ahead by 3. You could have let that layup go. Instead, Virginia hits the 3 that sends it into overtime. Virginia wins. Chris Beard blew it. He brought his baggage with him to Texas, and it all blew up on him. And I think if you poured truth serum into Chris Del Conte and Texas officials, they did not plan on hiring Rodney Terry. Rodney Terry got on the run, did a great job. The players were playing for him. He got to the Elite 8. And so Rodney Terry gets the 5-year contract, paying him $3 million a year. And good for Rodney Terry. Life's about opportunities. Rodney Terry never would have been hired to be the head coach at Texas based on what he did at Fresno or UTEP. He had a losing record at UTEP. He had a barely above 500, 60% win percentage, maybe. At Fresno.
Yeah, I think Rodney for his career is right over 500 prior to this stint. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. At UTEP, yeah, he was under 500, and at Fresno was about 54%. So yeah, he would have been more or less right above a 500 coach at the time of his hire.
So, Rodney Terry got the opportunity. It's a great story. He's a guy who got his coaching start right here in Austin at Bowie High School with a friend of ours, Zay Collier's dad. And he worked his way up, got an assistant coaching job at Baylor that ended up helping him get Trey Johnson because he coached Trey Johnson's dad, as you pointed out, Eric, in your reporting about Rodney Terry coaching Trey Johnson this year. And so Rodney Terry became he took advantage of his opportunity and caused Texas to change course, and good for him. And now we'll see what Texas is going to do. I do believe that Sean Miller, the head coach at Xavier, is a leading candidate for the job. I reported last night when I reported that Rodney Terry would be let go, that Sean Miller was indeed a candidate 2 years ago, and those two met in the Sweet 16. Rodney Terry won, and Rodney Terry got the job. If Sean Miller had won that game, Sean Miller might have gotten the job. And so there they were again last night with Jimmy Sexton, Sean Miller's agent, sitting behind the Xavier bench. When was the last time Jimmy Sexton was at a first 4 game in Dayton? But Sean Miller finds a way. His team finds a way. Xavier wins 86-80. And now, we'll see how this plays out. But I do believe that Sean Miller is a leading candidate for the Texas job. And we should know more in, the next few days, or we'll see how long Xavier stays in the tournament. But yeah, that was surreal, Eric, that in the committee, as soon as we saw that matchup, we were like, oh my gosh, the irony in this first 4 matchup was palpable. and a bit surreal. But there's a lot of good coaches out there, and Chris Del Conte, Kevin Eltife, they're going to look for a fit, because right now Will Wade, oh gosh, Clemson's come all the way back.
They came back?
It's 69-65. Oh my gosh. 69-67 is the final. McNeese
won?
McNeese won 69-67 after leading by 20 plus. And, Jeff Goodman tweeted out in the middle of that game, Will Wade hasn't signed his new deal at NC State. Wolfpack fans, just putting NC State fans on tilt. But I've reported this. I've heard Will Wade wanted Texas, but it wasn't a reciprocal, there wasn't mutual interest. So, but it's that time of year where the timing is terrible for all of these types of things. And with the portal opening next week, Eric, there does need to be some urgency. Now, you also talk to the players in the locker room. What, you're losing 7 of your top 10, but Jordan Pope is a junior who could come back. Kendall Weaver, a sophomore who will be a junior next year. Devon Pryor, who didn't play a second last night, and Nick Cody, Jamie Vincent. You talk to them, it sounds like they know that everything's up in the air.
Yeah. Chip, quick correction. Kendall spent 1 year at UTA. This is his second at Texas. So he's a junior. Yeah.
Right. So
don't worry. I make the same mistake half the time myself. So just a quick correction there. So yeah. But no, as you noted, Jordan Pope was a leading scorer back-to-back years at Oregon State. So clearly someone who is a talent if utilized. And I'm not saying he wasn't utilized here. I think there's a myriad of things why he ended up being, his numbers were all down this year. But Jordan Pope is a talented guy. You want to bring back Kendall Weaver, has another year left, a talent you want to bring back. Devon Pryor, considered to be the most athletic guy on the team. 6'8", 6'9". His athleticism doesn't grow on trees, right? Was shaped by old Tracy McGrady down there in Houston, right? So he's someone you want to bring back. Jamie Vincent, Nick Cody, et cetera. When I spoke with Kendall, Jordan, and Devon, they all said that they want to come back, Chip, but they're not dumb. These are, 20, 21-year-old kids. They are on social media. They know the talk about their coach possibly being out of a job. It said it. They said, listen, we want to come back. Kendall said, I love being a Longhorn, but I understand it may not be in my hands. Jordan Pope said, I want to be back, but said, obviously things with the situation, and was very clear what he was hinting at with the situation, being Rodney Terry's coaching status is going to play a factor, right? Whoever the head coach may come in here and decide, hey, they may want their own guys. Kendall Weaver, Chip, is a very specific talent. We all know he is a talent. He is still raw. I think missing the 15 games, I don't want to say it hurts him, but I think it may limit him in the sense of what would have been the evolution of his game from last year, right? He's a high motor. He'll give you all he has on defense, can, create steals, great offensive rebounder for a guy who's 6'2", 6'3". But in terms of the offensive evolution, you didn't get that this year, in part because he was hurt, right? Missed 15 games. So,
right.
His shot still just seems hit or miss. Although he hit a three last night. That jumper isn't still consistent. Devon Pryor, right? I think he's such a raw talent. You see kind of the flashes of his overall ability, someone who can play defense, just his length, his athleticism, but he's another guy. So we'll see. But no, Chip, it was clear that all the guys we spoke to want to be back at Texas, but they know that may not be up to them, quite frankly.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. And as I recall, Sean Miller had good things to say about Kendall Weaver, right?
Right. He said every team in America would want a Kendall Weaver. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Just something to file away there. All right, let's get to we got a lot going on. Obviously, we've got Texas LSU baseball to touch on, Texas softball, which took the series against Florida 2-1, is hosting Auburn in their first SEC weekend home series this weekend, and obviously spring football starts up next Tuesday. Eric, let's touch on football for just a second. Pro Day is also on Tuesday, same day that spring football starts. So you'll have spring football in the morning and then Pro Day in the afternoon next Tuesday. But Eric, give me a player on offense and a player on defense who you're excited to follow as spring football starts next week.
Yeah, I'll start on offense. You know, it's perfect timing because I just published last week the tight end outlook. Jordan Washington is a guy who, if this position stands pat as is, probably going to walk in Ohio State as the starter, right? You know, you have a combination of he and Spencer Shannon, maybe fill in some of that JT Sanders, Gunnar Helm vibes from a couple of years back, with Spencer Shannon serving as the Gunnar Helm role, someone who is evolving as an athlete, as a receiver, but primarily a inline blocker. And Jordan Washington, the guy you can kind of flex out a little bit, right? So I'm keeping an eye on him offensively because we know, Chip, what the tight end position, how important it is in Steve Sarkisian's offense. So that is something I'm keeping my eye on. And real quick, I'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. Going to go with Travis Shaw, the former five-star recruit, 24/7 Sports five-star talent. Of course, spent his first 3 seasons at North Carolina. Can he have an Alfred Collins-like jump under Kenny Baker in PK's defense playing for Texas? We know how crucial that defensive tackle spot's been over the past few years. We've seen, Cole Brevard come in, Hero Kanu, Alex January is returning, right? So, but I think Travis Shaw, in my mind, I think if there's someone who kind of has maybe the most, I don't say boom or bust, but highest ceiling of that group, I'm going to go with Travis Shaw. So those are the two guys for me, Chip. What's
okay? Yeah, and on offense, I'd mentioned Ryan Wingo to you because he's got that new vision with some LASIK surgery. But we know Ryan Wingo is a playmaker and a guy who Texas will count on. So I'll go out to right tackle, where Brandon Baker and Andre Kojo are battling. Brandon Baker's a guy Texas really coveted, obviously a 5-star recruit out of California. Does not have the length of Cam Williams for sure, but great feet. And Andre Kojo is a guy who's waited his turn. He's got the measurables, he's got length, but does he have the feet of Brandon Baker? So I think that's going to be pivotal. Obviously Cole Hudson and Connor Robertson and Daniel Cruz battling it out at center is huge because Texas, for the last 5 seasons, has had Jake Majors as the center, which is amazing that Texas is going to have a new center for the first time in 6 years. But I think that right tackle spot is critical because Cole Hudson has played. He started every game his freshman year. Brandon Baker, Andre Kojo, those guys are looking to break in. And then on defense, Eric, a guy who, I know I should say something like corner because there's so much intrigue there, but I'm going to go with Brad Spence, the Arkansas linebacker transfer, because I just keep hearing good things about him, his work ethic, his ability. He's a guy who can rush the passer. He can drop into coverage. He can play the run. I think this was a really big pickup for Texas with the losses of David Benda and Mo Blackwell. So I think Brad Spence, I'm interested to see how they use him, how he fits in. Because, you've got Ty Anthony Smith, who's coming on. They really, really like him. So yeah, I think, there's a lot that we're going to be covering in spring football. So hold on to your bootstraps. Eric, I will just touch on Texas baseball real quickly. While Eric's been, blanketing the universe covering Texas basketball, I've been out at Disch-Falk Field, and it was interesting times on Tuesday night because, the previous Tuesday night, you had Drew Rarick and Bryce Navarre, do a nice job in a win over UT Arlington. And then, Drew Rarick starts. It was windy. It was tough conditions for sure. Wind was blowing out. But he gives up a leadoff home run, Eric, and it was like, it just like that freshman moment hit, and suddenly Rarick was struggling to find the strike zone, and it was a walk and then a single and then a walk and a hit batsman, and he was out. And it just did not go well, but then it did go well because Cade Bing came in, and Cade Bing had kind of been struggling, and he throws 5 innings of perfect relief. No hits, no walks, 15 straight batters up, 15 straight batters down, and Texas is up 6-2 when he leaves, after 6 innings. And then, Bryce Navarre comes in. He had done well the week before. He struggled. Thomas Burns, who had pitched well, struggled. And in 1 inning, Navarre and Burns gave up, 4 runs on, 5 hits after Bing had been perfect for 5 innings. And it just did not go Texas's way. They lost the free base war, as Jim Schlossnagle called it. And that's a trend that needs to be watched because Texas has actually given more free passes in 3 of the last 4 games than their opponent. And they've survived. They survived at Mississippi State. They lost the free base battle in 2 of the 3 games. They tied in the other, and Texas won all 3 games. So Schloss was like, hey, we got hit, and he said, the guys who struggled tonight, we need them, they're going to have to pitch for us if we're going to be the kind of team we want to be. That's a big buildup for the fact that LSU comes in as one of the best offensive teams in all of college baseball. Number 3 in batting average nationally, number 3 in batting average, number 3 in runs per game, 10.4, number 3 in on-base percentage. And they're led by their super freshman, Derek Curiel, who, Schloss said maybe the best freshman in the country. He's batting leadoff and batting .434. And Jared Jones, the first baseman, is right behind him, batting .424, already has 34 RBI and 7 home runs. So LSU, who is making a step up in competition, 21-1. They have a 16-game winning streak. Texas just lost its 17-game winning streak. So this is going to be awesome. I mean, Texas LSU fans are going to be here. What a great first home SEC series, and so that should be great. And Texas softball, again, huge series win over Florida, taking 2 of 3 in Gainesville, and then coming home to take on Auburn, who was swept last weekend by Texas A&M. Texas A&M. We remember Texas A&M softball. They almost beat Texas in the Super Regional last year. A&M is now number 5 in softball. A&M softball doing a lot better than A&M baseball, Eric. But yeah, it should be great. And then Texas women's basketball, for crying out loud, the number 1 seed in the Birmingham 3 region. I don't quite know what the regions, I'm used to the Midwest, the West, the East. We got Birmingham 3. But Eric, Texas in its quadrant has number 4 Ohio State, number 5 Tennessee, keep an eye on them, number 2 TCU, and number 3 Notre Dame. And there was an audible kind of roar of excitement when Texas saw that Notre Dame was in their quadrant, because and Shea Holly said, I think we would love payback. Texas lost to only 2 teams in women's basketball this year. Notre Dame back in December up in South Bend in overtime, and of course twice to South Carolina. And Eric, Texas is in the same half of the draw with South Carolina, meaning they would meet in the Final Four in your native Tampa, Florida. Your thoughts?
Chip, it's funny. I think, we've talked about this a little bit. I think, Chip, this is just my opinion, Texas can beat South Carolina neutral floor. And I know that sounds a little spicy, considering the fact that South Carolina's beaten Texas twice this year. But at last I checked, Chip, just like the beloved Texas men fell victim in Ohio, both of those games were in the great state of South Carolina. Okay. Dawn Staley has said that her fans will travel to Paris. Well, that's fine. Guess what? I'll tell you something I've learned pretty quickly in my 2 years on the Texas beat. Longhorn fans don't have any issue traveling as well. All right. Maybe they won't travel to South Carolina, to Greenville, which I'm sneaky. I've heard that Greenville is a sneaky little cool town. So I'm not, pooping on Greenville, but I think I have a little hunch, Chip Brown. If it's the Final Four, you will see plenty of burnt orange in my hometown of Tampa, Florida. And that will make for an interesting environment, one that I think the Longhorn women will win.
Okay. There you go. You heard it here first. I like Texas to get to the Final Four. I kind of can't get that last South Carolina win out of my mind when you're bringing in full Wiley off the bench and she's lighting it up. Texas women can struggle to score at times, especially if they can't get the ball inside. But anyway, Chloe Kitt's pretty good. But Eric, you ready for some take it or leave it?
Chip Brown, I am ready for some take it or leave it.
All right, then. Let's do some take it or leave it.
Let's roll right into this time. I am serving to you first. So we'll go ahead and drop that cron right there and bring up this lower third. Take it or leave it. Number 1, the Texas football player who could help himself the most at Tuesday's Pro Days, tight end Gunnar Helm, after Gunnar suffered that nasty sprain ankle at the combine. Take it or leave it, Chip.
This is a great answer, probably, but I'm going to go with my heart here. I'm going to leave this and say, how about my man Silas Bolden? I need Silas Bolden to light it up. His dad is a track coach. I'm sure Silas Bolden has been working his 40 like crazy. And I'd love to see Silas Bolden get a chance with someone as a special teams return guy, utility receiver.
Yeah.
The guy's a football player.
Yeah.
So, I thought he should have gotten more run with the Longhorns this year. But I'm going to leave this, Eric, and say Silas Bolden. What say you?
Chip, I naturally would agree with you on Silas, but I'm going to leave it on Gunnar. I think Gunnar's pretty established at this point. How about I go to another unsung Longhorn? David Benda, Chip. I've seen some comparisons, and I don't 100% know that I agree with the comp, but I think it's an interesting one. I've seen Dre Greenlaw as a comparison for David Benda. Ooh. That would be pretty interesting. Again, I don't quite see it, but you know what you're getting in Benda, a guy who's a lunch pail guy, going to put his head down, going to work hard. Whatever you as a coach, you ask David Benda to do, he is going to do. I think he's a smarter football player than maybe he gets a credit for, quite frankly. I think the issue at Benda are maybe his athletic limitations and not his IQ. I think there's a spot for David Benda in the NFL. So with him not being a invitee at the NFL Combine, I think he's going to be the guy who I think can help himself the most, Chip.
I like that. Answer. All right, take it or leave it. Number 2, Eric. With the Rodney Terry era coming to an end, as we have reported at Horns247, Texas basketball must hang on to Kendall Weaver, Jordan Pope, Devon Pryor, Nick Cody, and Jamie Vinson. Take it or leave it.
I think Texas needs to hang on to some combination of 4 of those 5. And this is no shade on Jamie Vinson, who you look at him, Chip, like a 6'10", 6'11" guy who's probably going to be 7 foot by the time it's all said and done. Like there's something there with Jamie Vinson. So I'm not discounting him. But I think just of the ones you've seen this year, mostly in Kendall, Jordan, Devon, and Nick, those would be the ones that I think you got to get some combination of those 4. But yes, I said this to you off here and we're planning the show. Whoever the head coach is, Chip, yes, in the portal era, right? You can turn over a roster quickly. But as you talked about, if they lose all of these guys, even 4 of them, now you're having to turn over 10, 11, 12 guys on this roster, right? That's a lot, especially if, and again, we'll see the situation where, kind of the head coaching situation stands come Monday, the portal's open. And you don't think that teams are going to come. You don't think there's going to be an SEC team or whatnot that's going to say, hey, Kendall Weaver, you're waiting over there for to figure out who your coach is going to be. Here's some cash. Come do what you do. Be the junkyard dog. Come rebound for us. Jordan Pope. Oh, man, you didn't get the shots you wanted? Yeah. Oh, don't worry. We'll give you 15 shots a night here. Here's some cash. Devon Pryor, athletic guy. We got some money, some NIL funds for you. So, yes, I do think it's crucial because you can't turn – you would have to essentially portal if you can't get some, late recruits. Portal 8, 9, 10 guys. And then you're trying to create continuity, which has been an issue over the past 2 years for Texas, Chip.
Yeah, no doubt. I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree. I'm taking this. Eric.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry about that. Take it or leave it.
Number 3.
Number 3. Number 8, Texas baseball will win at least 2 games at Disch-Falk Field this weekend against number 2 LSU, the Bayou Bengals, Chip. Take it or leave it. Okay, so here's the thing. You look at LSU's offense, you're like, whoa. They're batting as a team 345. 345. Texas is batting 300. And Texas ain't bad. LSU, they knock the ball around the park, and depending on how the wind is blowing. But here's the thing. They haven't faced the pitching that Texas is going to bring. And Missouri almost beat LSU in 1 game last weekend. So I'm going to take this. You got the Tigers coming into Austin. The Longhorns are coming off a loss. I think they scratch out 2 wins. And Sunday is for the series, which would really be interesting because last weekend, Jim Schlossnagle did not start his Sunday starter, Dylan Volantis. He ended up using him as a closer in games 1 and 2. So he started Jason Flores, who was very good. And Max Grubbs came in and finished the deal. So I think we're going to see that more. I think Max Grubbs is going to be maybe the Sunday reliever because Jim Schlossnagle knows that can be a critical game. So, and Chip, real quick, because I know I've been following basketball. What's the latest on Dre? Because I know he left. Go ahead, Chip.
Yeah. So he came in and he was warming up, and Schloss didn't like how the ball was coming off, and then he's like, "You okay?" And the trainer came out. I don't know if it was a blister, but Schloss was like, "Yeah, we're not gonna we're not going to mess with this. I need you for the weekend. So they had Duplantier warm up. He came out. He threw a few pitches. Schloss said no, but he said he's fine. So I expect to see Andre Duplantier available for this weekend series. All right, so I'm taking it, Eric. What say you?
Oh, I got a little ahead of myself. You can tell I'm running on fumes here, Chip. I got ahead of myself.
I know. I'm just trying to keep you afloat here.
No, Chip, I am going to. I'm torn. I am going to take this. First off, the one taking a leave for last week that could have been scored. Believe Chip got it right that he said that Texas would take the series, all three, Mississippi State. I know I said for a fact that they would not. So they made a liar out of me. And that, listen, I'm not going to read too much into the UTSA loss. I mean, that's a motivated club. They're coming up from their high school field. That's no shit on the Roadrunners. I've been to the baseball stadium at UTSA covering CUSA. It's a high school field. So they were motivated to come up to Austin and get the win, right? But I'm going to take it, Chip. I do like the confidence that Jim Schlossnagle's club is playing with, the mentality and the attitude they're playing with. I think they're going to have something to prove. So I'm going to take it, Chip.
Okay. All right. Hey, and thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of the Flagship Podcast. Thanks to Eric Henry for flying across the country and making himself available for the Flagship Podcast. We got to get this man some sleep because he's got a big weekend ahead. And again, please like and subscribe to the Horns247 YouTube channel so we can grow. Feel free to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com, where we do have a 50% off special for annual membership. And you want to be an annual member, because if you're an annual member, you get VIP access to all the team sites in the preeminent 24/7 sports network. So you can read up on LSU baseball and all your teams that you like to follow up on. For Eric Henry, I am Chip Brown. Until the next episode of the Flagship Podcast, stay safe and keep the faith.